Check, 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 check. Yo, what's up, y'all? This is Ortiz, and welcome to my channel. Today, we're on a transition talk, and transition talk is where we're talking about the Mucusless Diet Healing System. I'm bringing on different practitioners to share their mindset and their practice, their transition, how they came to the system, and we're just gonna have a lot of fun. So today, I have with me Airest Dion, and before she comes up on here, I'm gonna read her bio so you get this encapsulation of what you're about to get into. So Airest Dion is a licensed esthetician and owner of Airest Dion Skin Therapy, a private skin therapy practice located in Charlotte, North Carolina. Airest marries the mucusless diet methodology with the topical use of simple natural botanicals. By doing so, she helps her clients achieve clearer skin while improving their overall physiological health. And we'll share how to connect with Airest. I'm sure you'll want to check her out, www.airestdion.com, and on Instagram at Airest Dion Skin Therapy. All right. So without further ado, here we go. Yo, what's happening, Airest?
Hey, how's it going, Q?
Yo, it's pretty good. Just chilling out. I know we were talking a little earlier. Just having a good, productive day. I feel good. Like, yeah, I'm mucusless today, so it's like I try to be mucusless for these interviews, at least fasting or mucusless. So, yeah. How you doing?
Been doing great. As I mentioned earlier, it's a rainy day here in Charlotte. Rainy days kind of bring about an energy of like rest and reflection and relaxation for me. So I woke up this morning and had no intention of fasting, but that's just kind of how it's happened. So I've just been drinking lemon water and tea, kind of relaxing, cleaning up my space, writing some thoughts down, getting organized in my physical space and in my mental space. So it's been a really good day, perfect day for me to come with you and talk with your audience and talk about the mucusless diet. I'm feeling really focused.
Nice. You mentioned tea. Different people have reached out and asked me, hey, what kind of drinks are you doing? And that sort of thing. They wanted to know. So what kind of tea are you rocking with today?
So I am a tea lover, I have to admit. And when I was back in the day, when I was, following a really strict raw vegan diet, a lot of raw foodists were like, oh, no teas, you can't do teas because you're using hot water on the herbs. And I kept my teas because I just think it's wonderful plant medicine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A brand that I love is Traditional Medicinals. I think that it's a great quality and accessible for most people. I'm doing their Everyday Detox tea, which is one of my favorites. It's a blend of stinging nettle and dandelion, great for liver support and helping support the skin and detoxification. So that's one of my favorites, and that's what I'm sipping on today.
Really nice.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned a couple of things in that, where plant medicine and raw vegan diet. So last time we spoke, you were expressing your story, how you came to the Mucusless Diet Healing System, and your practice as well with your skin therapy and how you've been combining those two elements. I felt like your story was very clear, very effective, just to my ear. And I would love for other people to hear your story and how you went about that process. Would you mind just sharing through, and then I'll jump in and we could just pause at certain moments and really just extract more if we need to. But yeah, are you down to do that?
Totally. So as Q has mentioned, I'm a holistic skin therapist, so a licensed esthetician. I work with people who are experiencing some type of imbalance in their skin. So whether that's people who are experiencing acne or eczema or severely dry skin, rosacea, severely sensitive skin, I essentially help them bring their skin back into balance using plant-based diet recommendations, aka the Mucusless Diet, and through using natural botanicals topically on the skin to support the skin in its regeneration process. And how I kind of came into this path was because I was someone who, since the age of about 12, experienced severe acne. And both of my parents, of course, like most cases that I've seen with other clients, but both my parents have beautiful skin, like never had issues with acne, never had any type of skin issues. And so my mom was very desperate to try and figure out why I was having this go on with my skin. And so we were living in Pensacola, Florida at the time, and she took me to every single notable dermatologist in our area. And this was over a span of about a year. And each of them recommending a different pill, a different antibiotic, a different chemical peel, a different topical solution. And at the end of me kind of making my rotation through these dermatologists and experimenting and trying their different recommendations, my skin was in worse shape than when I started. And that experience really kind of planted a seed for me. Even though I was young at the time, I just found it so interesting that with all of the advances of, you know, our Western medicine world, that no one could figure out why I was having breakouts, you know, something that I figured was very simple compared to people with more serious degenerative diseases. I was like, I wonder why no one knows why this is happening or can help me reverse it. And so fast forward, as I got older, graduated high school, went into college, I started experiencing other different health issues. By this time, I had gained a significant amount of weight. I was having really painful, long, heavy menstrual cycles. I was suffering with bouts of depression. I was having digestive issues. Doctors had diagnosed me with IBS. So a lot of these health issues were kind of popping up that I didn't know at the time were related. But, and so because of these experiences, I felt really helpless. Like I didn't understand how the body worked. I didn't know why I was experiencing these types of symptoms. But again, I feel like these experiences were kind of like seeds being planted. So fast forward again to 2013, I had graduated college. I got my first job. I had just moved into my first house. And moving was quite expensive, right? So I was like, I need to put myself on a little bit of a budget. And so I can kind of get back on my feet again. And so the first thing that came to mind was, I'm going to cut back a little bit on my my weekly grocery expenses. And when I looked at my grocery receipt, the most expensive thing on there was meat. So that fact, coupled with the fact that even when I was younger, I never liked to handle or see or touch raw meat. So I was like, since I don't really like fooling with it anyway, and since it's expensive, I'm just gonna like not purchase any meat for like maybe the next month, maybe 2 months until I'm able to get back on my feet, right? So, and that's exactly what I did. I stopped buying all meat. I just loaded up on veggies, and I got really into quinoa and chickpeas and lentils. And during this time, I really discovered that I enjoyed being in the kitchen. I liked making different meals. I had grown up in a household where everything was like canned and processed and microwavable meals and Stouffer's oven dinners, you know, so it was fun for me to kind of play with real food and make dishes that were really creative that excluded meat. So about 3 to 4 weeks in two things that I noticed. The first thing was that my clothes were fitting really different.
Okay.
I was probably about 210, 215, 210, 215 pounds at the time. And I posted a picture on Instagram, and one of my girlfriends from college was like, Airest, are you losing weight? And I was like, you know what? My clothes have been fitting different. So I hopped on the scale. I had lost 20 pounds in that 3 to 4 week period, right?
Yeah.
Without seeing inside of the gym, right? I was not working out.
Yeah.
And had lost weight. And I was like, that's crazy. Well, another thing that I noticed is I used to wake up every morning with like a new pussy pimple somewhere on my face.
Yeah.
And it was like 6, 7, 8 days before I was seeing any new active breakouts.
Okay.
And I was like, what's going on? You know, what's this change, and what's the cause of it? And I was like, well, the only thing that I had done was made this little change to my diet. Now, mind you, I had never heard of a vegetarian diet. I had never heard of veganism. I had never heard of, you know, these different phases, if you will, of a plant-based lifestyle. I was very ignorant to the whole thing. And so I hopped on the internet just to kind of see if there was any correlation between this weight loss that I was experiencing and my skin kind of clearing up with my decision to eliminate meat from my diet.
Yeah.
And so as I Google search, of course, I'm like inundated with information, right, of people who had not only lost weight or cleared their skin, but people who had reversed more serious degenerative diseases through adopting a plant-based diet. So at that point, I became obsessed. I started researching and reading books by Dr. Richard Anderson, by Dr. Robert Morris. I started reading the stories about Rosemary Fletcher, who was an African-American woman here in Asheville, North Carolina, who was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, was confined to a wheelchair, unable to walk or talk, and started adopting essentially a mucusless diet, but more so raw foods, fruit and leafy greens, and completely reversed her condition, and now travels the world speaking about the benefits, right, of
Is she
a plant-based
walking?
diet.
Does she
walking,
walk? Yeah.
talking. You ever heard of her, Rosemary Fletcher?
Nah.
You have to look her up.
I'll write
she has
that down.
a website.
Okay.
She has a website called youhealyou.net. Powerful woman. Amazing story. And it was just like I was finding stories after stories after stories like these of people who had healed themselves, you know? And so, again, in my mind, revisiting all of the small little things that I had been suffering from compared to people who had reversed multiple sclerosis and cancer and Lyme's disease, I was like, if it worked for them, surely to goodness it'll work for me, right? And so being inspired by these stories and now armed with the information that I had learned through studying the work of like present day healers, I started experimenting with myself. So and this is another thing that's interesting, I only found out about the Mucusless Diet Healing System the end of last year. So the end of 2020. And even though in hindsight, once I read the book and kind of got familiar with the transition diet, I was like, I have been doing this since 2013, you know, but now that I have the information and I'm, you know, reading the book, it's like I can more consciously practice it.
For sure.
But so in 2013 is when I eliminated the meat. About a year and a half later, naturally, kind of an intuitive nudge, I eliminated the dairy and the eggs. Stayed at that level for about another year and a half. And then I was like, you know what, these grains and these beans don't really sit well with me anymore. So I kind of let them go.
Let's rewind a little bit, because you mentioned before, like how you let go of the dairy, just that scene that you set. It was like, you mentioned like making a beautiful salad. Do you recall the salad that you made?
I had made one of my favorite salad combinations is I would do romaine lettuce was my favorite. And this was in the summertime. So I had like fresh romaine lettuce. And I don't know if you guys, even in the grocery store right now, like you'll notice all the spring greens are like just crisp and bright. And it's like they call to you. So I had this beautiful head of romaine lettuce.
Yeah.
And I had tomatoes and red onion. And cucumber, and then I had like this tahini dressing, so I was making like a spin on kind of like and I had olives, so it was like a Greek salad kind of thing.
Okay.
And so I had some feta cheese, right? So I had this beautiful fresh greens, I had the red onion, the tomato, the olives. I was like, oh my gosh, this salad looks so great. And then I'm like putting the cheese on top, and I was like, it feels weird. I was like, if I'm not eating the cow, and literally that was the word that came to me. It's like, if you're not eating the cow, why are you eating its cheese?
Yeah.
Right? And so I was like, well, I guess maybe I don't need it, but out of habit, because dairy was kind of like my transition food to getting off of the meat, right? And so I was like, well, you know what? I had only at that point just sprinkled a little, like half the amount that I normally would put on. And so I kind of picked the rest off, and I was like, I'm going to see if the salad is still enjoyable for me, not having the cheese on it. And I made an olive oil, lemon juice, and kind of herb kind of dressing to go on it. And it was very much so satisfying. And so that was kind of like the turning point. And I was like, well, I'm going to use up the rest of the cheese and the eggs that I have in the fridge now, and I'm just not going to buy anymore. And never bought any since then. Now, there was probably like 3 to 6 month period where if I was out with family, and at that time wasn't as well versed in how to order and customize meals to fit my dietary lifestyle. If there was cheese or something on it, I would eat it going out. But then after that 6-month period, I became can I get this without cheese? Is there cheese in the dressing? Is there cheese in the sauce? Like, is this vegan? Where I, was able to kind of navigate a little bit more confidently at restaurants and things like that. So, yeah.
Really cool. So then you mentioned the greens and then the legumes after that period.
Yes. So after I let the cheese go, then the cheese and the dairy and the eggs, the food that I kind of used as a transition at that point was the grains and the beans. So I did a lot of salads now with quinoa, which I found if you season quinoa just right, it can have kind of like the cheesy kind of, effect that you can add to salad, sprinkle it on top. And I was really into lentils, red lentils, green lentils. I did chickpeas and things like that, added those to my dinner salads. I pretty much would have, at this phase, I would have some type of fruit for breakfast, and then some type of raw salad for lunch. And then in the evenings, I would have a salad with like beans and grains. And as someone who had digestive issues previously, I found over time that the grains and the legumes just did not agree well with my system, especially eating them late. I kind of played with it. I've always been very experimental with my diet. And so I was like, maybe it's me having it so late, having it as my dinner meal. So I found that in terms of digestion, having the denser foods in the middle of the day, that helps. It digested and eliminated a lot better.
Okay.
But it always dropped my energy, right? So with having fruit and a raw salad, I was like buzzing and kind of going on and doing my day. But now that I was having kind of like the rice and the quinoa and the lentils midday, I felt kind of a drop in my energy. So after playing with it for a while, and I'm like, you know what, I'm having it for dinner, having it for lunch. I'm trying to make it work. It's making me tired if I have it here. It's making me bloated if I have it here. I'm like, what if I just didn't have it at all? You know? And so that's when that was kind of the turning point when I started getting into raw foods. Because I was like, well, I've taken out the meat, I've taken out the dairy, I'm taking out the grains and the legumes. I'm now going to use like the nuts and the seeds and the coconut in place of the beans and the grains. Yeah. And so I started researching more and following more with Dr. Morris, because he's someone that really supports a raw diet, especially a fruit-based raw diet. Yeah. And started following and watching YouTube videos from Raw Food Romance. And I've always been someone who really enjoys fruit. And so I was like, I can definitely do this. So I transitioned and kind of refined my diet even more, and got to the point where I was just having juices or a smoothie or something light for breakfast, having a fruit meal for lunch, and then a raw salad for dinner. And this groove was really good for me. It felt good. My energy was sustained. I wasn't eating, really heavy foods like I was with the grains and the beans. And so I didn't feel these dips in my energy. In terms of digestion in the beginning, digestion was great. Elimination was great. The thing that got me, though, is that going back to some of the health challenges that I was experiencing, my weight had regulated. I had lost weight. I wasn't losing any more weight. I was kind of stabilized with my weight. My skin had cleared up beautifully. I no longer had mood swings or unexplained sadness. But one thing that lingered was the pain with my menstrual cycles. Yeah. And although at each phase, it no doubt had improved, it was still present though. And that was something that really stood out to me. And again, I'll say kind of planted a seed, because I was like, from my perspective, I thought that raw foods was like the top of the top, from what I had been reading and what I had been studying. And I was like, well, if this is the top of the top, if this is the highest that there is, why am I still not experiencing perfect health? Right. Mm-hmm. And I had, in my just being in kind of the industry that I'm in holistic wellness and being someone that's a personal interest of mine, I had come across Professor Spira and his work. I used to follow Dan McDonald, the Life Regenerator, on YouTube, and always was a huge fan of his. And I remember the Life Regenerator was interviewed by Professor Spira. And this was like long time ago. I would just like binge watch Dan's videos and like go back 10 years or so and watch all his old videos. And so I remember the name. I remember hearing Professor Spira. I remember some of his content kind of popping up on my Instagram feed. And I remember taking a look at his website and kind of hearing about the mucusless diet, but never really gave it a good look, never really looked into it, never read any books about it. Of course, Dr. Morris and Dan McDonald are very much influenced by Professor Arnold Ehret's work. So I was familiar with the name. I was familiar with the diet, but never really delved into it before. Yeah. So as I'm kind of having these questions as to, why am I still experiencing a certain degree of suffering, being as though my diet is so clean, so I thought. And so like that next day, I'm on Instagram and a post of Professor Spira's pops up as one of my suggestions. And so that day I decided to go on his YouTube page and was like looking at some of his videos. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to order this book. And so I ordered the Mucusless Diet Healing System, read it in like 2 days because I couldn't put it down. Yeah. And it just clicked. And it was like my whole transition experience, reading the book kind of put my whole transition experience into alignment. Like I was able to understand the different phases that I had gone through, and why I was experiencing lesser symptoms as I was going through those phases, you know, really seeing foods through the lens of ones that create mucus and ones that don't, you know. And it seems like a very simple concept, but it was something that I had never been exposed to before. And so it was really for the first time me seeing through this particular lens that explained very clearly why I felt my best when I didn't have certain foods, and why I felt heavier and sluggish when I did. It just really explained my experience very well.
Nice.
And so what I realized was, well, I got the answer to my question through reading that book. The reason why I'm still experiencing a certain degree of suffering, even though my diet is so clean, was because I ate a traditional, what I would consider to be a traditional raw food diet. So one that is very heavy in nuts and seeds, avocados, coconut, all of which are mucus forming foods, right? So great to use as a transition in moderation.
For sure.
But these were like staples, you know. I was making cashew Alfredo sauce and almond dressings and patties with sunflower seeds, and you know. So at that time I was like, all right, I'm gonna trade in now. And I was someone who was like hardcore raw foodist, because I was under the nutrition theory, and I'm thinking that all of, you know, the enzymes and the vitamins and the minerals are more plentiful in the raw foods, and that's what I need to help my body restore itself. And my perspective and my view on how the body functions was just completely turned on its head when I read the Mucusless Diet, and it made so much sense, right? And so because it made so much sense, and because I believed it on a more on a cellular level, I would say, I believed it to be true on a cellular level. I was like, I'm going to trade in, and this is the hardcore raw foodist, trade in those nuts and those seeds and the avocados and the coconut, and incorporate lightly steamed and baked mucusless vegetables into my diet, right?
Yeah.
And the amount of, probably within the first 2, maybe 3 weeks, the amount of elimination, I mean, just mucus coming out of my eyes, my nose, I'm coughing up phlegm, right?
Wow. Yeah.
I started with the lemon enemas, and with seeing mucoid plaque come out after the enemas. And so it was like, I knew from how my body was responding that this very subtle, I would say, subtle change in my diet was putting my body in a place where it was able to really release and eliminate. And that's when it was confirmed for me that this was the missing link, right? That I had been looking for.
Totally. So I was thinking, you said when you read the Mucusless Diet Healing System, you said it made sense to you. I'm curious, what made sense? Like, what was that understanding? What did that feel like?
Sure. So the thing that made sense was how Professor Arnold Ehret described the human body, the human organism, as an air gas engine.
Yeah.
Right. And how the underlying reason for the sickness that we experience is a result of obstructions, right?
Yeah.
And these obstructions are accumulated through consuming not just, you know, foods in general, but specifically mucus forming foods.
Yeah.
And so with me not having that understanding of what a mucus forming food is, or what foods were mucus forming, it was a mystery to me why sometimes I felt good and sometimes I felt less than good, right? So it was like, it made sense now, had clarity as to why my body reacted to certain foods. Well, because those foods are mucus forming and these foods aren't.
Yeah.
And so that made sense. I kind of had like a reason now, an understanding as to why my body responded positively to some foods and why it responded negatively to others.
Mm.
Another thing that really made sense for me and that really clicked was the concept of, and sometimes I hesitate really talking about this because I think that the level of consciousness of humanity right now is not really ready to accept this truth, but the fact that we never really were supposed to be eating in the first place. And, you know, I had shared with you my experience with when I had been fasting on watermelon juice and was practicing pranayama, doing my breath work, and I lost my hunger.
Yeah.
Right. I went 3 months without eating. And it was a thing where, you know, I had no intention of like doing a fast. I just found some really good watermelon. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to eat watermelon. And then I was like, it was kind of cumbersome bringing a whole watermelon to work. So I'm just going to juice it, and just started drinking watermelon juice and doing my yoga and doing my breath work. And then I was just like, come dinner time, I'm not hungry. And then come breakfast time and lunchtime the next day, I'm not hungry. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to make myself anything to eat until I feel hungry. And it was like 3 months before I experienced hunger. And so, you know, having that experience and not really knowing anything about breatharianism or knowing anything about the body being an air gas engine, this was very alarming and perplexing to me. And that experience is what propelled me to kind of do research. And that's when I started finding information about breatharianism and that kind of thing. So that experience, having that experience and then reading the Mucusless Diet Healing System, again, an aha moment. Like, that's why my body was able to sustain, because I had been, you know, fasting, eating fruit and drinking juices, and the amount of obstruction that I had in my body had decreased, and I was breathing and I was, you know, creating circulation in my body. And this was allowing my body to experience an increased amount of power and vitality, to the point where I was not having to, I didn't have the desire to eat, you know? So
yeah,
the entire book just kind of, it was very eye-opening, but at the same time, it was confirming what I kind of already intuitively knew based off of my experiences.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. It's like what you just mentioned about being able to see how your body was able to have the opportunity to release when you started substituting those nuts and seeds for the steamed and the baked mucusless vegetables. You watched how your body started to release more of the waste that was trapped inside.
Absolutely.
And then you looked in the book and was like, that's what it's saying. It's saying
exactly
you get that opportunity when you stop eating mucus forming foods. Oh, now my body can stop dealing with trying to buffer these mucus forming foods and start to actually
do the work.
Remove the obstruction that's
Absolutely.
in the way. Yeah, that obstruction. So we went through, just to recap a little bit, it's like starting off when you were younger, you had acne, different digestive problems, got to high school, still not too good. It was like, you say you were about 200 plus, 210, 215 in the weight. And yeah, you felt helpless, you said. Definitely noted that. It was like, yeah, feeling like, what can I do? I'm just existing, but I have problems. Like, I just want to be good. And then
we just want to be good.
Just good. Like, why am I going through? I'm waking up, I have these breakouts on my face every day, and I can relate just with I had like sesame oil last year actually, and I watched every time I would eat it, boom, I'm breaking out the next day. So it was just like, throw this out, get like, yeah, keep it moving. That's not a part of my transition.
Yeah.
So then we went to the experiment with when you moved, I believe it was after you graduated college, and looked at the budget and was like, yo, this is QRT's version too. You see how it's like, yeah, like, yo, let me cut the budget on my groceries. Notice meat was the most expensive on that receipt.
Yeah.
And you also had a disdain for even dealing with raw meat. That's how you know already. You're like, I don't even want to, like, I don't think raw meat is natural anyway.
Right.
And yeah, get that out of here. So then just in that 1 month, you mentioned that you lost 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Yep. 20 pounds just cutting out meat. And then over time, I think you said a year and a half or something is where when you cut out the dairy and just, yeah, like went through that natural transition of seeing how the foods work with you, experimenting, switching from the quinoa, chickpeas, and the legumes to the wild rice, I believe you mentioned too, to then going into the more raw, because you said those weren't working for you. So then you went to the raw, more nuts and seeds. And then we got into the mucusless diet information. You mentioned Dan McDonald as well. And just, yeah, switch those out, went into the more steamed baked mucusless vegetables, got into breatharianism, confirmed more of your findings with the breatharianism, how you were able to sustain with that watermelon fast, and just dissect Dr. Morse's information, life regenerator information, and then getting into Professor Spira and learning for yourself. Oh, okay, this is, now I'm practicing more consciously because I read the information.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. So I want to take this moment. We can go from, that was your journey specifically, like with the food aspect, and you noted a few times that you were having clearer skin through this practice, and your symptoms were reducing each phase you went through on your transition. So please express to us, because yeah, I find it very inspiring and refreshing to hear about your practice with the skin therapy and incorporating the mucusless diet. Can you tell us about your introduction into the skincare and then what you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love what I do because my first passion has always been the human body and understanding how it works and what it needs to operate at its highest level, right? And at the same time, I had this experience with my skin and nobody seemingly being able to understand how to support the proper function of the skin. And so when I got into, I decided this was in 2015. I was working as a retreat director for a massage and skin therapy retreat here in Charlotte. And I just became really attracted to the stories. One of the responsibilities that I had in this role was I was having to interview and hire new estheticians for this location. And during that interview process, I just became so attracted to the stories of these women and how they got into that practice and the things that they loved about working with clients and helping them improve the appearance of their skin. And I was like, this is something I could do, because I knew through my experience of the transition diet that a lot of the skin issues that we experience is a result of an unclean gut, an unclean digestive system. And so the reason why I was able to kind of experience some of the improved skin benefits that I have is because I was doing the work of cleaning myself up. And so I was like, this will be perfect. This would be perfect for me because it brings together two things that I'm very interested in. And so that next year, that summer, actually, I enrolled in Gaston College, which has an aesthetics program. I graduated from that program in May of 2016. And while I was actually in school was when I was developing my skincare line, because I found very early on that just like how in the food industry, there's a lot of processed, prepackaged junk food, the same is very popular and very common in skincare as well. There are a lot of processed skincare products that have a lot of synthetic ingredients and things that are not actually beneficial to the skin. And so started developing my skincare line when I was in school. And when I got out and started practicing on my own, I knew that was going to be the pillar of my practice. The two main tools that I was going to be using would be, one, plant-based diet recommendations, and then two, educating people on the benefits of using simple, pure, natural botanicals on their skin. So things like hydrosols and natural plant oils and clays and herbs, right? And so what's interesting is, again, I had started my practice well before I found out about the Mucusless Diet Healing System. But from the very beginning, I had always been teaching a transition methodology. So let's say I have a client who came in who was on a standard American diet, right? So a diet that's dominated by a lot of fast food, a lot of processed food, someone who might be an alcohol and a coffee drinker, right?
Yeah.
And in addition to that, they're using, salicylic acids and very erosive skincare products. So the first thing that I would do would be like, one, do a consultation, do an analysis of their skin and make proper recommendations for skincare products. But then we would have a conversation about diet, right? And I would help them understand the connection. And I shared this with you, Q, how, Professor Arnold Ehret talks about the tongue being our magic mirror.
Yeah.
And I personally believe that our skin also is like a second magic mirror, because it really gives us insight into the current state of our internal body. I love to use the example of when we're fruit connoisseurs. So let's say it's summertime, peaches are in season. You're going to the grocery store, you're picking out the peaches that you want. What's the first thing that you look at when you're wanting to pick a good peach?
Yeah, that skin.
The skin, right?
Yeah.
because the skin is going to tell you whether that peach is going to be too ripe, whether it's going to be, have a soft spot or something like that.
Yeah.
So just like with the human organism, our skin reflects the current status of the body. And so with my clients, helping them to understand that, right? And then the second thing is figuring out what that next step is for them in terms of their dietary lifestyle. So as I had mentioned, if I have someone that's on a standard American diet, how realistic is it for us to eliminate fast food from your diet? You can keep the meat, you can keep the dairy, you can keep the junk food for right now, but it's like, can you for the next 3 to 6 months commit to no fast food? Or for some people, it might be no fast food, no junk food, right? Or let's say I have someone who's vegetarian, right? They've already eliminated the processed food and the junk food, and they've eliminated the pus-forming foods, meats.
Yeah.
How realistic is it for us to have a conversation about removing dairy? If not 100%, can you have it only twice a week,
Yeah.
So kind of having a conversation to see, one, how willing they are to make changes into their diet. And then two, what kind of change that we can make that's not big enough that they can't commit to it and they can't be successful with it, but that is big enough that they'll begin to see a change in how they look and how they feel. And so I was actually quite pleased and amazed at how many of my clients, probably more than 70%, were able to commit to those small changes, And one thing that I tried consciously to do, like within consultation, is try not to use words like vegetarian, like vegan, like just basically say, how comfortable are you with eliminating dairy, instead of saying, how comfortable are you going vegan, right?
For sure. Yeah.
You know, because it's less intimidating. They don't feel like they're, fit into this box. And, and so now reading the Mucusless Diet Healing System and seeing what an emphasis is put on the transition diet, it confirmed that I was on the right path in terms of my way of working with my clients, but then two, it helped me to really refine the way that I delivered the suggestion of a transition diet, and helped me to be even more successful with getting clients to understand kind of like the direction that we're going in, but knowing that they don't have to go 100 miles an hour in that direction overnight,
Definitely. Yeah.
So yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, that's beautiful. Just, I really appreciate the questions that you brought up as well. Like, one, in your assessment, how willing are they to change their diet? Just like that element is so important, because it's no progress without the will to change. It's like, if you don't have that will, then the recommendations have no weight. It's just, hey, do this. Oh, that sounds good. But then you don't do it. No change, no progress. So,
and what's crazy is, like, I probably have one of the few practices that have such a high success rate in reversing acne, rosacea, eczema, these serious skin issues. And a lot of people are shocked because I don't use a lot of the high-tech delivery system products that are common in my industry, right? And I think that just speaks to how effective, and I mean, this is something that you and I, and maybe even the people that are listening, already know, because for the most part, these are people who know about the mucusless diet and or practice it. But what's so interesting is to have my practice and my clients' results on such a platform that people who have not heard about the mucusless diet or heard about the benefits of a plant-based diet, they're able to see, because I'm very, I post a lot of before and afters on my social media. I invite my clients to really speak about their journey, right? So people can see how effective this is. It's actually not really common for people who have skin issues that even go to dermatologists to get real results. It's so uncommon to see people actually get results in their skin. And yet I have a Rolodex of before and afters of clients who within 6 months see a dramatic improvement in their skin.
Wow.
And it 100% has to do with the fact that they're cleaning up the inner terrain.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I think, a lot of that simple act doesn't have a lot of merit right now. People don't think that what they eat for the most part affects how they look or how they feel. And so I feel so blessed to be in a position to like highlight this truth, you know, and give my clients an opportunity to experience it, right? To experience it for themselves. And that's sometimes the approach that I take too, when I have those clients that are like, no, girl, I love my bacon. I gotta have my eggs, you know? And I'm like, well, listen, we're not doing it forever. You're seeing me for 6 months. Give me 3. Give me 3 months with no bacon. You can go back to eating it afterwards. Let's just see if it works.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I have several clients where they'll do it. They'll be like, okay, I can do it. They can do it if there's like a deadline, right? But thinking about doing it forever, for some people, they're just not there yet. And that's cool.
That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot of emotion right there.
Right.
Like forever. Yeah. You like,
forever.
Like you
No
picture every
forever.
breakfast. Yeah. Like, hold up. Yeah. That's hard to fathom.
The thing is, they give me that 3 months, they commit to it, and their skin looks night and day. And it's like some of my before pictures, before and after pictures of clients, you'll even see that they have slimmed down. They have slimmed down, their skin has gotten clearer. Now, some of them do go back to eating the bacon, but the thing is, when they come in for their facial, I'm always like, they're monthly treatments. I always do like a touch base with my clients before we get started. Like, you know, how's your skin been doing? Anything going on? How's your stress level? Yada, yada, yada. And she's like, girl, I had bacon, so I have a breakout. It's like you and the sesame oil.
Yeah.
They know what's causing it now.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think even that is a gift, you
For
know,
sure.
because
Yeah.
like for me, back in the day, I had no idea what was causing the effects that I was experiencing.
Exactly.
And so now with my clients, it's like, even if they decide they're not ready to commit to a cleaner diet, they at least now know that it has some type of negative effect on them when they don't.
Definitely. Definitely.
And I think that's important. Yep.
That's very important. Yeah. Just awareness for sure.
Exactly.
So on this note of sharing with the people, sharing your truth and your wisdom, I would like to know, what is your message to those tuning in?
Yeah. So my message to those that are tuning in is, we are in a time now of regeneration, right? Humanity is in a time of regeneration right now. And it is important that we begin the process of cleaning ourselves up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my message is an invitation for people to get on the path, right? And the beautiful thing about the transition diet is that the ways onto the path are many. You can come in at any level, you can come in at any degree. The idea is just to get on the path, begin the process of cleaning yourself up, cleaning up your physiology, because there's an awakening taking place and we don't want to be left behind. We want to be on the cutting edge. We want to be clear-minded. We want to be open-minded, and we want to be in a position physiologically to be able to be connected to the downloads, right? So I encourage everyone, whether if they're not on the path yet, to get on the path, start doing the research, listen to your intuitive calling and be guided by it. And for those of us who are already on the path, be encouraged, because there are so few of us, but the few that there are, we're leading the way and we're the torchbearers, and it's imperative that we stay on our game as well. So my message is to, one, know that there is a process of regeneration taking place right now in humanity, and to encourage everyone to take their rightful place in that regeneration process. And that begins with us taking responsibility of what we put in our mouth, what we put in our body, and taking our personal regeneration seriously, so that we can begin the process of the regeneration of our planet and of humanity.
I like that. Yeah, that was because I was tuning in, so I also received that message, you know. Yeah. And so when you mention the downloads, just and then listen to your intuitive calling and be guided by that. Just strong words, strong message. Yeah. Yo, thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure. Thank you for being receptive to it.
For sure. Yo. Ooh. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap this up here. Thank you so much, Airest Dion. I'll leave the you got it. I'll leave the website to your page up on here. It'll also be in the links. It's, let me see. It was AirestDion.com.
Yep, AirestDion.com is my website. And Airest Dion Skin Therapy is where you can find me on Instagram.
Great. Beautiful. All right. Talk to these people here. Yo, thank y'all for listening. tuning in to this vibration. Click like if you like this video and want to see more. Leave a comment below if you have any questions or just want to kick it with us. We'll be just saying what's up in the comments here. And if you want to continue on this vibe, click subscribe and we can vibe. Peace out.
Thank you.